But today, another day, another poll showing The Voice, the race-based referendum, is in deep trouble. This time, it's the left-leaning Essential poll with sobering data for those determined to inject toxic racial politics into our nation's founding document. The abuse and bullying isn't working, the guilt trips aren't working, and neither are the songs. I'll bring you some fascinating insights from the Essential poll shortly. But first, to outgoing Qantas CEO Alan Joyce, who tomorrow ends his 15-year reign as CEO. Goodbye, and many would say good riddance, to the man who took Qantas from the spirit of Australia to an underperforming, overcharging activist airline, one that is facing a record penalty of $250 million after being sued by the Australian Competition and Consumer Commission for allegedly engaging in false, misleading or deceptive conduct. Now, Alan Joyce has collected around, $100 million for his time at the airline, plus there's a reported $24 million golden handshake. Not bad for systematically damaging the reputation of a company that used to enjoy unparalleled levels of consumer goodwill. These days, though, passengers are more likely to have toxic race politics shoved down their throats than experience a premium service. You can't travel an hour on Qantas without copying an acknowledgement of country message and corporate virtue signalling about respecting elders past, present and emerging. Whether you're an occasional traveller who's grappled with flight credits and hour-long wait times on the airline's ironically named customer service line, or whether you're a frequent flyer who's become all too accustomed to flights being late, cancelled, run-down lounges, mediocre service and those utterly unnecessary acknowledgement of country messages, it's clear that Qantas's credibility has crashed. I've been writing and talking about Alan Joyce and Qantas's warped priorities, their substandard service and corporate virtue signalling for some time. Around a year ago, one of my pieces carried the headline, "Qantas is no longer the spirit of Australia." Now, that was considered scathing back then, but it's positively mild compared to the headlines the company has copped in recent days. We had one headline from the Herald Sun on their front page reading, "The Lying Kangaroo." Sub-headline of Con Air there. The Daily Telegraph implored the company to just give it back, referring to the more than $500 million Qantas was attempting to seize from customers, while the Australian Financial Review went with grand theft klepto. Rather creative there. Now, if the boneheaded Qantas board had any sense, they wouldn't have waited for Joyce to prematurely end his farewell tour today. He should have been shown the door long ago. And now the focus switches to Chairman Richard Goyder and incoming CEO with Vanessa Hudson. Labor Senator Tony Sheldon is among those calling for Goyder to step down, particularly if Joyce gets his massive golden handshake.
It is clear that this board and Richard Goyder needs to also be held to account for the decisions that this company has been making over this period of time. The real test for Goyder and the board is that they turn around and make sure that $24 million is clipped. And if that doesn't happen, Richard Goyder should go.
As Matthew Benz wrote in the Daily Telegraph today, behind every cost-cutting, fare-increasing, reputation-trashing decision made by ousted Qantas Chief Executive Alan Joyce stood a silent board of faceless men and women. And judging by Richard Goyder's glowing comments about Alan Joyce's departure today, it's clear that the chair still doesn't get it. Now, being hopelessly out of touch, perhaps inept, may be the norm at the AFL, where Richard Goyder is the Commission chairman, but one would hope for higher standards in the aviation industry. It beggars belief that Alan Joyce was allowed to sell $17 million of his own Qantas shares while the company knew the ACCC was circling, looking into their shoddy conduct. For confidence to be restored, we need to see a dramatically different approach from the new CEO, Vanessa Hudson, And we need a reckoning for the board.